Oh dear. Oh dear. We have to get that fade out working. I don't know. I never like to cut off the band. How's everyone doing today? Oh, glad to see some people in the chat already. Welcome everyone. Oh my goodness. So, today I think we're going to have some fun because we've been playing around in the proto-language for so long. So today is a Conlang stream, by the way. I don't know if anyone knew that from the title, but yeah, today's a Conlang stream, and we've been playing around with the proto-language for so long, and I think we really need to get back to the present a little bit. So we've had all this fun making a verb system, and now let's see what happens when we take all this elaborate verb system we made for the proto-language and put it into the present, into the original language that we were trying to create, Justamija. And then I think, depending on time, we may also explore one of the other descendant languages and make it super SVO. So that's the vague plan. Oh, it's so cool. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're finally watching my stream too, live. This is so cool. Yeah, the timing is so hard to work out for these things. But hopefully, as my schedule opens up, as the year goes on, I can hopefully put little streams in different places so people in different time zones can jump in. And of course, if you are watching this later in time, in the future, in the distant future, always feel free to leave things in the comments if you have suggestions or questions or things. That's always very welcome. So I'll ask Lucy. Lucy, by the way, is the producer of this show. Lucy does an excellent job, and she does an excellent job telling me when my technical details of the stream are not set up super correctly. So, Lucy, do we have the all clear? Can we go into the body of it, into the meat of it? Waiting for that signal. I don't want to have this thing where there's a buzz or there's some weird. We had a weird glare a few weeks ago coming off the side, and I'm told it was a real pain to clean that up in post. So excellent. Okay, thank you, Lucy. All right, so let's go. I'll do the little segment intro for YouTube, and then we'll go right in. So, welcome YouTube. Welcome to the channel. If you have not seen the channel before, you may want to go and check out the very first video in this series, because this is like way down the line. But this is a channel all about linguistics and conlanging. We have fun doing that kind of thing, and this is no exception. So today, we're going to be taking our proto-language that we've been making in this playlist, and we're going to start to derive some forms in the descendant languages. And we're going to take the language Justamija Kal, which was the original language we started this family out with, and we're going to derive a verb system for it. And we're going to build on some stuff we did last time. So let's get into the spreadsheet. Where is the little thing that puts me into the spreadsheet? It's this one. There we go. Okay, so taking the suggestions from last time, I'm blanking exactly who it was who suggested Lexergy. Was it Violet? I don't know. Well, thank you to whoever it was. And I've started using Lexergy over the past week. It's a fantastic suggestion. And so we will be making ample use of Lexergy today. I've put all of the sound changes from protocol to Justamija into the system. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. And it does super segmentals like stress and vowel quantity. It handles them like a dream as long as you play around with it a bit. But that's not what I want to show you. I want to show you what's going on here. So let me move things around. There we go. That's good enough. So last time we devised this system, which was shamelessly stolen from classical Japanese, where we have three well, we had 6 types of verb stems, and then different verbal forms are formed by suffixing different morphemes. So adding different suffixes to different verb stems. So you see down here, we have a past tense morpheme, which attaches to the stem be. Oh, Raven. Oh, thank you. Sorry, misattribution. My fault. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It was a wonderful suggestion. So we have a form like yota, which is formed on the B, stem B. We also have the form ya, which has no suffix and is formed on the stem A. So the difference between the stems is that in an earlier stage of the language, they had different stress patterns. And we have one vowel that comes into protocol with the different quality depending on where its ancestral stress pattern was. So we have this verb which shows up as ya or y depending on which stem it's in, because in pre-protocol, these forms were stressed in different ways. And so where is a good... okay, so here, ignore dynamic versus static right now. We're just going to talk about dynamic. We have 2 grades of every vowel. We have the form that continues the pre-protocol stressed form, which is grade 2 here. That's what this is all about. And then we have a form that continues a pre-protocol unstressed form. The only time this makes a difference is in the vowel, which in its stressed form is a and its unstressed form is I made a slight change from last time, those of you who've seen the previous video, in that I used to have a non-alternating a and an alternating schwa a. Now I've just left it so that there's only an alternating schwa a. So that's a little thing I did off screen. Sorry about that. Just because I was getting super confused. Anyway, explanation continues. So we have situations like stem A where the first syllable in pre-protocol was stressed. So this would be something like ya, or the imperative yafa, or I suppose that would be yafa. So I have to write this down because it's getting abstract. So we have a pre-protocol form yafa with the stress here. There we go, something like that. So this is stem A. Stem A, whenever something is in stem A, it has initial stress in pre-protocol. So this is pre-protocol. Stem B is going to have final stress. So we have a form like the attributive form su. So this will look like yasu, but because any unstressed a will go to in protocol, we're going to have yaf and yasu. So this is stem B. Then there's also stem C, which had penultimate stress in pre-protocol. Now for a short verb, a short stem like ya, which only has 1 syllable, this is not going to make any difference. It's going to look like initial stress because there are only 2 syllables. Penultimate stress, when you have a 2-syllable word, looks like initial stress. So let's take an example. Actually, I don't think we have any that just purely have 2 syllables, so we can actually see the effect here. So this is the presumptive form, ya in the pre-protocol, ya ahwe, and so this would look like ya ahwe. Okay, so this is how these verb forms work. In protocol, however, we have regular stress. So the stress pattern of protocol is, if I recall correctly, just anti-penultimate. So the stress changes from yafa, well, that doesn't change, yafa, from yasu to yasu. Oops. I'll put this into a different column. So here's protocol. So we have yafa, yasu. Okay. I don't know why this doesn't like me. There we go. And yahwe. Go up here and do it. So this ablaut pattern becomes well, we cover our tracks essentially, and it's very hard to see what conditioned this pattern if we're looking just at protocol. Cool. So that is how dynamic stems worked. There are also static stems, which basically have fixed stress in pre-protocol and don't show any of these alternations. So, you know, that's just to give us a way to ignore it. And basically, as the language advances, excuse me, my voice is getting a little off. 1 second. Hydration. So as the language advances, the static stems are going to predominate and they're going to become the productive form. And there will just be a few relics of the dynamic forms in the descendant languages. Maybe we'll leave one in which this is still somewhat productive. Yeah, maybe clear as mud. I don't know. But let's work with this. Let's see what these stems end up looking like when we run them through the sound changes to make Justamija. Justamija will also have some morphological changes. We had in Justamija reduplication for past tense, which we did not have in the proto-language. So we'll make a decision about that. I mean, I'd like to keep it because we had it before. But we'll come up against that. That's going to be something that we can't just derive via sound changes because it's a new bit of morphology. Okay, so let's take this over here. And I'm not sure what the best way to display this sound change business is. Maybe this will work. So let's write in some verb paradigms. We can go over the individual rules to refresh everyone, but I'd rather do it in the context of actual forms rather than just reading through them all, because that'd be kind of dry. So let's do that. We will start by looking at this this verb ya, to do. That's going to be nice and irregular. It's going to stay that way. So let's take a few of our forms. So we have yafa. We have to take out the morphological boundaries, which means do, imperative. We have yasu, which means which does. Kind of like the replacement of a relative clause. It's this attributive ending. Where's my mouse? This one. And ya'ahwe, which is the presumptive. So let's do. Okay. So if I've set everything up right, and this is always the danger that I may not have, but if I've set everything up right, this should look kind of cool. So let's see what we get by running it through the changes. Okay, so we get yaf for the imperative, yizi for the relative, and yiri for the presumptive. So that's kind of cool. That's nice and irregular. Let's see if there's anything else we can do. Let's take the what's another good one? Let's take the continuative. So this is like did and. This is the way we're going to be combining clauses in this sort of consecutive order. I did this and saw that and walked around like a chicken. So this looks like hupa, and it goes on stem B. Stem B is going to be final stress. So then we have yahupa, or yahupa, rather, in protocol, because we have this antepenultimate stress. And what happens? Yiba. I like that. So this is like the sweet spot for me, where you can still recognize the forms, but there's enough change that's gone on to make it kind of, ooh, cool. Okay, so let's look a little bit at the changes to see what's gone on and take stock of how the language has changed. So let's take, well, Yafa is a bit simple, but maybe this will help us to get some of these changes out of the way. So what happens here? We assign stress. So Lexergy does these awesome stress, allows you to do these awesome stress assignment rules. So we have, because what's it called? Protocol, excuse me, has an antepenultimate stress regularly. We have a 2-syllable word, so we're going to get penultimate stress just because we have to. So we go yafa, then we delete schwa in unstressed position, so yaf. And this length neutralization is just to remove the diacritic that says, hey, I'm a heavy syllable. It's going to be relevant for the stress assignment later. Okay, so that's simple enough. And if I'm going too fast or if I'm leaving anything unclear, please, by all means, just write in the chat and tell me. Sometimes it does happen. Okay, so let's then look at yasu, which does. So I'm going to just, oh, you can't see that. There's never enough room in this thing. What just happened? Okay, so let me put this over here. Let me give us another row, or sorry, another column. And let's just put the meanings of these things. So do, which does, and let's do. There are other ways of translating them, but those will work for now. Okay, so yafa, yasu, yahwe, and we also have yahupa, and this is something like did, or does and, or does then, and let's say and. Okay, so that is good. Yahuba. And this is actually also stem B form. So this would have worked like this. Okay. So then let's look at yasu and see how that changes. So yasu going to yeezy. So stress assignment, not that interesting. Ioticism. So this is, we have a rule, I'll show it to you. It's probably down here, where almost all of our vowels just turn to E. And if this reminds you of anything, it should be Greek, which had something like this happen, where we just have all sorts of vowels converging on this one vowel E. So everything turns into E almost. Cool. So this our stressed schwa and our U both become E. So we go from yasu to yisi. And then we have this allophonic rule in the modern language, in Justamija, which is basically voicing between vowels or sonorants. So we have yisi going to yeezy. And there you go. It is a huge merger. You know, oh yeah, Bulgarian. I do not know very much about Bulgarian. I will have to look that up and see how that works. And Everett, yes. Is it where's the stress on that? Everett or Everett? Welcome, and I'm glad you could catch live too. Okay, let's see. Another question coming in. What's the difference between conditional 1 and conditional 2? The difference between conditional 1 and conditional 2 is the difference between, let's see if I get everything on the on the same screen. I don't think I can. Conditional 1 is an indicative conditional. And an indicative conditional is something like, if I am at home, I am not at the store. So it is, it's opposed to a counterfactual conditional, which is conditional 2. So something like a counterfactual conditional would be something like, if I were at the store, I would get you a package of cream cheese, or whatever the case might be. It's something that isn't the case, but you're making a condition on something that isn't true, what would happen in that case. So that's the difference between conditionals 1 and 2. Conditional 1 can also be used for things like when or because or given that. So conditional 1 is kind of it's a morphological category name. It's meant to be helpful in some way, but it's not exhaustive of the meaning. It's sort of a cover term for all these things. So if you have a form with tohua, which is conditional 1, this would be, you could translate it as when. So I think let's look at our text, because I think this comes up a bit. So here we have yetohua or yetohua in the proto-language. Payawiche nafia masfaufo masala yetohua. And here we're translating it as because. So because the swan's feathers were white like the sun, ... Okay. So that is that. So let's go and let's look at some more sound evolution. So let's go back here. So we have yesu going to yizi. Then we have this yeahwe form, which, one of these days I will learn to scroll the mouse in the right direction, but that day is not today. Okay, let's do yeahwe. So in the proto-language, yeahwe, what do we have in the modern language? So here's one where more is going on. So we get the stress like normal. Then we have a rule of vowel coalescence. So when we have two vowels that are in hiatus, we lose the second vowel and get compensatory lengthening on the first. So ya goes to ye. So from yeahwe to yehwe. That's this. And then we lose vowel length. So yehwe. Then we get that iotacism yihwi. And then we get this uvularization where our rounded velars become uvulars, which I did find in the Index Diachronica. So apparently it did happen once, but I just kind of like it. Then we get yi-chi, and then we voice that in between vowels. So yi-ri. Yiri. Yeah. So that means let's do yiri. And that's kind of a cool evolution from yahwe to yiri. Kind of cool. I don't know. Then we have yehupa. And this one is even more fun. So this goes to yiba. How does that happen? Okay, so we have our stress rule. That's not too interesting. It's always going to be anti-penultimate. Then we lenite this ch, the plain velar fricative. That goes to h, which is something that happens a lot. So yehupa goes to yahupa, and then something else that happens a lot, h drops out. So we have h deletion. So yehupa going to yehupa, sorry, going to youpa. And then we have our vowel coalescence rule, which we've seen already. So we get yupa, and then we neutralize the vowel length. So yupa, yodicism, yipa, and voicing yiba. So all's right with the world. We have a very irregular verb. So I think that is a pretty cool outcome. Now let's see what we get when we have a dynamic stem verb. Oh, sorry, that's a dynamic stem verb. Let's see what happens when we have a static stem verb. And we had a static stem verb, which was afi. So afi, the difference between a dynamic stem and a static stem verb in pre-protocol is that static stem verbs always have the same stress. And I haven't really decided yet, but I think it might always be initial. So we have stem A, stem B, stem C, all afi, afi, afi. And this means to be thus or to be so. So this is something like be thus. Probably not something you say every day, but the language has a form for it, which is thus. Oh, so I have to add the. So afi fa, afi su. I don't know why I'm putting these in different cells. Pardon me. Afi su. Afiahue. Sorry, afiahue. And let's put in this form as well. So afihupa. So all of these are going to have initial stress. Why? This is putting in random amounts of quotation marks. Is beyond me. Great. And then in protocol, we just have a stress shift. So then we go to afiahue and afihupa. And afihupa. So afiahue means let's be thus. And is thus and something like that. So let's put these through the sound change, through Lexergy, the sound change applier, and let's see what comes out. And I'll remove these stress marks and morpheme boundaries here. And let's just look at all of them. So here goes nothing. So let's see if I can we? That works a bit better. Yafa to Yaf. Yasu to Yizi. Yahweh to Yiri. Yehupa to Yiba. That's what we have so far. And Afifa to Avif. Afisu to Avizi. Afiahue to Aviri. Afihupa to Aviba. And so we can see here that the actual endings are not any different, at least in this case. We will be able to find one where there is a difference, though. So stay tuned. So we have essentially synchronically in Justamija, we have an F suffix for the imperative. We have this Z suffix for the relative. We have ri for the what is this one? What was it called? Presumptive, which acts as a let's form, and ba for the what's it called? The one that gives us and. That's called the continuative. Yeah, the continuative form. Okay. But that's not it, because there is something else that's going on here. Excuse me. So we have avif, avizi, anti-penultimate stress, aviri and aviba. And this is because before Justamija call, but after proto-call, we had a weight-sensitive stress situation going on where heavy syllables attracted the heavy penultimate syllables. So things like, let's trace the evolution of afichupa rather. Now I have to go back here so we can see it. There we go. So we have afiupa going to afipa. And normally, if this were not a long vowel, the stress would recede and go onto this first syllable, which is the antepenultimate syllable. Af, like we have in afisu going to avizi. So short middle syllable here, no stress attracted. When we get afichupa, the deletion of this plain velar after it lenites to H is going to give us a long vowel, afipa, and that's going to attract the stress. And then we're going to get aviba. So some of these forms pull the stress forward and some do not. Or back. I don't know how to think about that. So that's cool. Okay. Bring back all of the forms. Move this over here. Say my window arranging work is never done. Okay. So another thing that we have in the dynamic, the formally dynamic verb class, is we have a vowel change here. So ya, the stem ya, goes to yi in certain forms. And if this were a 3-syllable word, we would also see stress effects. Let's find a difference. Let's find a form which is actually going to be different, which is going to have different endings depending on whether it's a formally static or formally dynamic verb. Okay, so that would be the past tense suffix ta. So for the verb to do, we have, well, no, let's go through the whole thing. Eventually I will have to learn some sort of basic organizational skills. I just want to get these things slightly separated and give us some room to do a bit more. Okay. So we have the past tense form. So did. This is going to look like in pre-protocol. This is going to look like, we have to go down here, look at the past, stem, what does it take? It takes stem B. Ya is a vinamal, that's not even anything. A dynamic verb. So that means that we're going to have stress on the final syllable of the form, which means that the suffix, the past tense suffix, is going to be stressed, which means it will surface as ta. So stem B, we are going to get ya, ta in pre-protocol. And in protocol, it's just going to stress shift to be yata. Great. For a static stem verb like afi, we are going to have a slightly different situation. We are going to have fixed initial stress, so afi. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Afi, and because a has as its allophone and unstressed syllables in pre-protocol, we have afita, which goes into protocol as afita. So let's see what the fates of these two forms will be. So yata, and then afita. Oops. Yeah, it does get a bit complicated. I apologize for that. Hopefully it will start to make sense as we go into Justamija, where a lot of this is going to be regularized out. But essentially, if I can summarize it in a nutshell, we have three forms of the language. We have pre-protocol, where we had a stress system that was morphologically determined based on what stem class a verb was in. So if a verb was in stem B, if a verb's form was in stem B, it's one of these things that takes the B stem, then that form would have final stress in pre-protocol. If it were a form that took stem A, then that form would have initial stress in pre-protocol. This doesn't actually matter except for one vowel, which is the vowel A, which, when it's unstressed in pre-protocol, reduces to schwa. Okay, so that's the situation in the first stage of the language. In the second stage of the language, we lose that morphologically based stress system, and stress is purely regular on the antepenultimate syllable. So that's not the last one, not the second last one, but the third last one, if it's available. Otherwise, the second last one. So we have afifa and yafa. We no longer have things like yasu. We have yasu. So this second stage of the language, which we call protocol, erases the conditions by which made this alternation between a and schwa make sense. So now they become contrastive. They can show up in the same environment because the thing that conditioned them before, the stress shift, no longer exists. So now we have some words which in some forms have a, and in some forms have schwa, and they're stressed in the same place in protocol. So that's the second stage of the language. And then in the third stage of the language, all sorts of stuff happens. We lose a lot of schwas, so things end up getting, a bit more chaotic and it's a lot less clear what the relationship between these different forms are. So for example, we have yaf, so we have the stem ya here, and then we have in other forms of the same verb, the stem yi. Why? You have to go all the way back to pre-protocol to understand why. At that point, it's regular, but then it becomes irregular. So that's the whole point, is just to allow us to get some irregularities in the kind of way that does occur in language change. Often things that are irregular were once regular, and the regularity of a previous stage of the language gets worn. Things happen, sounds change, and things that were regular at one stage are no longer regular in the later stages. So that's kind of the gist of what we've done here so far. And Raven says, "Oh yes, so having this u go to just a long So this where is the situation? Yehupa. Yeah, so in Yehupa we go Yeupa. Oh, I have to put it over here to make it show up. Yeupa going to Yepa. Is that plausible? I mean, to me, it is not implausible. We often see vowel coalescence between when vowels are in hiatus. Vowels, often don't like to be in hiatus. Hiatus, by the way, is when you just have vowel next to vowel in different syllables. And if you want to get rid of that, one common way of getting rid of that is to turn them into a single long vowel or a diphthong. So maybe the question is it more natural that it should become a diphthong? Maybe. But this language doesn't seem to have any diphthongs. So we either create some or we create a new category of long vowels. I went with the long vowels. It is common for this kind of thing to happen, but I can't pull out a specific example. Okay. This is interesting. So having u. So as an alternative to this setup where we just have two vowels become a long version of the first vowel, we could actually have more complicated coalescence rules. So we could do something like Sanskrit did, where you have, I need to find some spots. If you have you have a kind of a table where if you have plus e, that goes to a. If you have plus u, that goes to o, this kind of thing. And we could definitely do that. And that would allow us to have more irregularity in the descendant language, because if we also made them long, then we would have another stem vowel change plus a stress shift. So let's see what that would look like here. So I'm not going to write the rules, but say we have Yehupa going to Yehupa, going to Yehupa, going to, so instead of Yepa, it goes to Yopa with a long mark. And then that would go to Yopa, and instead of undergoing ioticism, it would undergo raising to Yupa and Yuba. Yeah, I could definitely live with that. So schwa is not always weak. Schwa is weak when it's the type of schwa that English has, where it's a reduced vowel. But schwa is not always a reduced vowel. Often we don't write it as schwa in those cases, but I don't think there's a terribly sound reason for not doing so. We just have this association with schwa as being like the reduced vowel. But if we're looking at the vowel space and that's the vowel that it's close to, it's a central vowel, but it acts like a normal vowel under all other circumstances, then, I think we should still be able to call it schwa. That said, even as I say that, we do have independent evidence that this is a kind of weak vowel in this language, because it originated from an unstressed a, and it later is dropped in unstressed syllables. So, I'll definitely grant that argument there. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put in a cut here for YouTube, and then we're going to return and do a bit more. So I'm going to just go back to the full screen and thank everyone who is watching this on YouTube in the future for joining. Be sure to like and subscribe, as the saying goes, and we'll see you next time. Okay. And now I'll just do the intro segment for the next one. What are we going to do? We are going to probably just keep going. Okay, segment's about to begin. Send mode. Okay, so if you're watching this on YouTube, hi everyone. If you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. We're in the middle of doing a lot of diachronic morphology. So we're going to jump right in. If you haven't seen any of this, if this is totally new to you, go watch the playlist. It's a whole playlist now. We've got almost a dozen episodes in it. So we've been hard at work. So check it out. And without further ado, let's go back in. So back to this. You know what, Raven, I'm into this. I'm into this vowel coalescence. You've convinced me. I think we're going to do this, because this would allow us to have even more forms for these irregular verbs, and make them even more irregular and more devilishly confusing. Okay. But what we need to do, I think, now is think about, I had in mind that we might be able to look at one of the other languages that we've been developing. Let's go over to the comparative lexicon and let's look at some of these. And maybe I can zoom in even more just to emphasize things. So we have This whole zooming thing was probably a bad idea. Yeah, that was a bad idea. We need a bit more space. So we have these I'm really fascinated by language 3B, where we have this, like a word like facole in the proto-language, which goes to faculi in Justamija, but it goes to hauroil in language 3B, which doesn't have a name yet. So I kind of want to play with this language a bit, and I want to make it super SVO. So let's take a single sentence, and let's make this happen. So what would it look like? Let's take something from our proto text. Eventually, I'm going to have to write another text in one of these languages, but again, today is not that day. So what is a good sentence? This one. So we have, because the swan's feathers were white like the sun, the black like coal raven gave it the evil eye. Let's do this. So I need, I think, another window. Let's see if we can get everything up on the screen, and let's get rid of the notes. Let's hide these, and let's hide lang 2 and 3a. Hide. You all must be hidden. And maybe let's just see if we can ever so slightly. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I don't know. There's never enough real estate. I know. That's a common complaint, but all right. So everything is here. Everything is set up. Yeah, I think it's probably the front rounded vowels that are giving that vibe. I get an old French vibe from it personally. Hauroil. Justamija. It's, you know what's giving me the old French vibe? And I might have done this semi-intentionally at the time, or maybe it was something else. It's been a while. The palatalized, when a consonant is palatalized, that palatal shows up before the consonant, which happens in the history of French. So it looks like, and I'll have to find, where did we put the rules? Because we're going to have to put them into Lexergy, or I'll do that off screen, because sometimes that takes some debugging, and debugging is not what you're here to see. But we can start to see, did I put it in here? Yes, I did. Okay. So language 3B, here are your rules. So let's just, let's make a new sheet, call it, you can't see me calling it this, but it's not that thrilling. Just calling it language 3B. Let's put this here, our sound changes. Yeah. And let's take this sentence and let's get to work on it. Don't ask me why it randomly created borders. No. Okay. So we have Payawicha Nafia Masafa Ufo. So what I want to do is to break us of this SOV structure in this language. So my thought behind language 3B, this is something that, staying up late at night, you start to think about these things. And I'm thinking that there was a contact situation, like a language contact situation going on with the speakers of this colic language, if we can call them that. And this contact situation was with speakers of a language which was SVO, and probably heavily isolating. And as a spoiler, or a teaser rather, I think we're going to play a little with this language, this unrelated language that's affecting 3B next stream, which will be Thursday. Which will be on Thursday. So we'll play around with this this SVO isolating language. So anything weird that's going on with language 3B, we can just say, hey, yeah, contact. This will be our excuse or our reason for everything. So let's rework this grammar. And what we want to do is, instead of having this conditional one form of a verb, we want to have just a word that means because. So in Justamija, we used the root afi, which we've been working with a lot. Let's see, where did that go? This guy, afi, which means to be thus. So if you have afi tohwe, it means because it is thus, which is kind of a good stand-in for because. So that's something we can do. We can say afi tohwe. Sorry, I said tohwe. It should be tohwe. Afi tohwe. And that just means because. And then this goes away. Actually, I think we still need that yeah. And let's update our gloss, because the swan's feather literally did white like the sun. We can then take this do and turn it into a kind of an adjective marker. Masalaya. This reminds me of Russian, actually. And we can then put in we can then put in some sort of a copula, which we don't have yet. So now we have because the swan's feathers oops, I think we need the copula to go before masva ufo. Yeah, that's right. And then we're not likely, if we have a heavy influence from SVO languages, we're probably not likely to have postpositions anymore. So we'll need something that means like. And we'll get rid of this ufo. And we'll take this and put it over here. White, like the sun. So this is what we're going to be working with for this clause anyway. So we're going to need a protoform that's going to give us a copula, and we're going to need a protoform that's going to give us like. Okay, so what do we have in the way of phonology in protocol? Do we have? I don't think I've ever actually defined the phonology. Nevertheless, we can look to our... No, actually, I can't even look to the lexergy because I've mixed things in. I've been bad. Let's look at our comparative lexicon. Do we have a verb that's like stand? No. Well, let's take a verb stand. We have a bunch of things we haven't used anywhere, like, let's see, something relatively short. Amaka, quote, sawachwama, that's too long. Walanika. No, we need something short. We need something 2 syllables, and we need it to mean stand. Why don't we do this? let's look at Justamija. Here's our phonology. Chat, help me out. Can you give me a Justamija word meaning stand that we will then derive backwards into the proto-language and then derive forwards into language 3B as the copula? How does that sound? I think everything you need to know to generate a root will be here in this little square of excellence. Wakma. Okay, love it. Let's do it. Wakma. So if we have Wakma in Justamija, what's that going to have to be in the proto-language? It's going to be Wakuma. So that would look like Maku. Okay, we're going to use that for the next thing because we need more than one thing. So Wakuma. Wa. Oh, it's just at the bottom there. Wakwama. And is this going to be a dynamic or a static verb? I think it has to be dynamic just to get all of the, just so that we can have all the fun that we need. So then if it is dynamic, then only one of these things could be a. So in its A stem, it would be wakwama. In its B stem, it would be wukwama, and then something like ta. And in its C stem, it would be, depending on what the suffix is, it would be something like wukwamahwe. Okay, so let's see what this gives us. Is it even going to work? Okay, this is fun. So we actually don't get that. We get walgim. I think we'd only get this if we had something like wagima. Well, I'll have to return to this because I'll have to return to this. We'll return to the Justamija form. I like this protoform though, wakwama. So then let's take a look at our language 3B. Let's run these forms. Let's just say it's wakwama. We'll sort out the details later. Yeah. Believe me, I very much empathize when you say it is confusing. It is confusing. It's confusing me. So we're going to have to simplify it, but I won't subject you to that process because it involves me doing a lot of this and a lot of this and a lot of this, this kind of thing, and it's not good watching. So I'll do that, sort of lying up in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what's gone wrong with this verbal system. Okay, so let's take wakwama, and let's actually take the other ones too that we've had. Maku, and so maku would be something like makwo, and moon would be something like muna, or mona, rather. Okay, so these are our inputs. Let's move this a bit down. And let's derive these. So vowels front before front vowels. We don't have any front vowels. Schwa deletion. You have no existing reference to study from. You mean no reference grammar for this language, or no real, like, so no natural language to study from? Okay, let's do, we get intervocalic voicing, maguo. Do we want this to be intervocalic? Do we want M to count? I must feel like yes. Let's make it be or sonorants. Palatalization. We don't have anything to palatalize. We don't have anything to lenite there. We don't have any labials. Oh, we have M, but that's not targeted by this rule. We then Maho, Wauma. We delete final vowels. Mau, Waum, Warum, excuse me. And then we get Mau and Waum. Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, that it is totally made up. That's the challenge. We're sort of seeing it all live unfold before our eyes, and that's why everything is a bit malleable and a bit sort of, we work it out as we go. So you're sort of seeing behind the scenes. You know, normally you just see a finished conlang, but in this case we're building it up. We're building it up together. So yeah, thank you all for bearing with me, as it does get, you know, into the weeds a little bit sometimes, but I mean, that's sort of where the fun is too. Okay, so mon, maur, and warum. Interesting. Of these three, I think warum would be very hard to say and would be subject to more phonological reduction if this were a copula. Warum, maur. Mon, on the other hand, would not. So I might go back on what I said and choose this as the copula, mon. Just because it looks a bit more like something that I'd expect to be a copula. And okay, so we have this, although mona, we haven't gone through the sound changes yet. This is a sort of weird proto form with the modern language grammar and the reconstructed languages phonology. It's a bit weird, I know. And then let's use our warum here. Yeah, we could do it so that vowels delete only when it doesn't create an illicit cluster. In which case, maybe what we do is actually we epenthesize a vowel. So instead of waurma, we get wauram or something like that. And we'll call it a epenthesis. Maybe that'll be the unmarked vowel here. Wauram. Sorry, wauram. And wauram. So let's make this our word for like. Okay. Hydration. If you're watching this and you're not hydrated, gotta get hydrated. Okay, so then we take this like grammar, apply it to the second sentence. Like coal, so sequopata literally means fire rock, but we can gloss this as coal. And here we have this, we call the attributive form. Let's not use that for this. Let's give ourselves a kind of a relative pronoun, which maybe we are going to have as maur. So in the proto-language, makwo fasana. So the like coal. No, we need to restructure the sentence entirely. Okay, no, I see what's going on. The raven makwo. Sorry. This is raven. Huasakwa. Makwo. I'm losing it. The raven. So let's say the raven relative black like coal. So that would be makwo fasana wakwama sakopata. Oh, okay. Good. And then we have to say, I deleted something that I shouldn't have deleted. I deleted that dative sonama. So this is a third person dative. And we can use this. Let's just move this up into SVO position. Quota. And I know we're not using this attributive form for, what's it called? For sort of relative clauses, relative clause-like things, but maybe this is a fixed, like a fossilized expression to give the evil eye, and so we can keep it there. Okay, so that's basically the grammar. I think probably we'll have to wrap things up shortly, but I think we've accomplished a good deal today. The reason I have to wrap things up a little early is for the sake of my voice, because I'm going to be giving a rather long presentation this evening, and I have to be able to speak for 2 hours. So I will say, I think, thank you all. I'm going to go back to the full screen. Hopefully we made some good progress today. It's nice to get back into the modern languages, which totally exist. They do not, but they exist in our hearts, and I think that's the important thing. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks again. Like, subscribe, all that good jazz. And we'll see you next time. And to you, the live audience, thank you so much. This has been extremely fun. As always, I always have a good time doing this, especially the energy that I get from you and the suggestions is so helpful. And it's much appreciated that you come and take time out of your day to Conlang with me. So thank you again. We will be back on Thursday in the early afternoon Eastern time, probably around 1 or so. I'll put it up on Twitter and on the Discord as well, so everyone knows. My schedule's a little wonky in these past few weeks, but hopefully things should settle down and I should be able to get back to a more regular rhythm. So thanks again, everyone. This has been a great time, and it brings me joy that you're going to go back and Conlang yourselves now. If you got any suggestions or anything when this goes up onto YouTube, which should be in a few hours, just write them in the comments, and I'll be sure to take a look and and add things in. So thanks everyone again.